The car was humming. Not the engine, the car itself. Some kind of faint, electronic vibration, like a phone lost under a seat, or a GPS system still quietly awake. I hadn't touched it in 5 months. The garage was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into the bones of metal. The keys were still in the small ceramic bowl near the door, right where she always dropped them. I hadn't touched that bowl either. Until tonight. I didn't plan to come out here. I didn't plan to finally sell it. I just ended up in the driver's seat, knees against the steering wheel, staring out at the drywall like I might crash straight through it and keep going. And then I looked up. There was a smear on the sun visor. Faint, rust-colored, hidden unless you bent down and angled your eyes just right. It looked like blood. That part didn't make sense. The accident report said she died on the highway, flipped 3 times, ejected through the windshield. No other car involved. Open and shut. Clean, tragic math. So how was there blood here, in the garage, on the sun visor? I reached up. It was dry, old. I pulled the visor down, and something fell into my lap. A Polaroid photo. No date. No writing. But I knew the room. It was a cheap motel on the edge of town. I'd driven past it 100 times. The kind of place that didn't ask questions and charged by the hour. Beige curtains. Cracked headboard. Ice bucket on the desk. She was in the picture, wearing that mustard yellow coat I always hated. Next to her was a man. Tall. Shaved head. Leather jacket. Face turned away from the camera like he didn't want to be seen. But that wasn't what knocked the air out of my lungs. It was her smile. Not the fake smile she gave me at dinner parties. Not the tired smile after work. This smile was joy. Pure. Unfiltered. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. Maybe never. There was more. In the glove box, under expired insurance papers and an old packet of gum, was a burner phone. One of those prepaid ones you get at gas stations, still wrapped in a velvet pouch. The battery was dead, but I could feel the weight of it, like it was holding something toxic inside. Next to it was a receipt. Motel, Glenrock. Room 211. Same place from the photo. The date? 2 days before she died. She told me she was going to visit her cousin in Helena that weekend. She even texted me a picture of her on the bus. She lied. And now I had proof. Dead people aren't supposed to lie. I didn't know it yet. But that photo, that receipt, that smear on the visor, they were only the first cracks in something darker. Something I was never supposed to uncover. And if I had just sold the damn car like I meant to, I never would have known my wife was never mine to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. The Polaroid stayed on the kitchen table like a silent witness while I sat with 2 fingers of whiskey and my thoughts. I couldn't look away from her face, that wide, open smile, the tilt of her head against his shoulder like she was where she truly belonged. The motel receipt was folded beside it, creased and soft like it had been handled more than once. I unfolded it again and again, as if the date might somehow change. It never did. March 11th. 48 hours before she wrapped herself around a guardrail doing 85 in a 30 zone. They said she was alone. But was she? By sunrise, I had the burner phone charging in the wall next to the toaster. The screen lit up with a faint blue glow, pin-locked, but not wiped. That surprised me. If she was careful enough to hide a second phone, why not protect it better? I tried her birthday, and to my disgust, it worked on the first attempt. That stung more than it should have. She used our wedding anniversary for everything else. That meant this phone wasn't for us. It was for him. The phone was nearly empty. No saved contacts. No call logs. Just a few apps. But when I opened the text messages, one thread was still there, under the name Jay. It started slow, harmless, even. Messages about movies, weekend plans, teasing jokes. But then the tone shifted. Somewhere around late January, the messages got darker. Desperate. Emotional. Hers, mostly. Wall after wall of long paragraphs, some angry, some pleading. And every once in a while, a message from Jay that was cold, sharp, final. He was trying to pull away. She wouldn't let him. "You don't get to walk away like this," she wrote. "You told me you loved me. You said I wasn't just an escape." And then one that stopped my breath. "If you ghost me again, I'll tell her everything." Tell who? I scrolled faster, my thumb trembling. The last message was dated the night she died. Sent at 9:47 p.m. Fine. You made your choice. But you don't get to forget me. Not after what we did. There was no reply. That was the last message she ever sent. Nothing after that. The rest was silence. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, and went black. My hands were shaking. I wasn't sure if it was rage or grief or that horrible combination that leaves you numb in the chest and hollow behind the eyes. I didn't even know who I was supposed to be mad at anymore. Her? Him? Myself? I knew one thing for certain. There was someone out there who thought this was over. Someone who had walked away from her life, probably went back to his, maybe even tucked his kids into bed that same night, thinking her car crash was just convenient. But she had threatened to blow it all up. And that meant there was another name, another life, another marriage, one she might have already set fire to, or one I was about to. The motel smelled like mildew and cigarettes before I even opened the door. Glenrockin sat off the old highway like a discarded piece of the past, flat brown siding, flickering red neon, and a crooked sign that still advertised color TV, like that was a selling point in 2025. Room 211 was upstairs, far end, tucked under a warped awning with chipped paint and forgotten spiderwebs. It was noon, but the sky was overcast, and the whole place looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in years. I hadn't planned on going there. Not at first. But after reading her last message to Jay, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That photo, the receipt, the message, it all pointed here. She spent her last 2 nights alive in this room with him, whoever he was. I had to see it. I had to feel it. I wasn't chasing closure. I was chasing something colder, uglier. I wanted to scrape the truth raw with my own hands. I paid in cash and asked for the same room. The man at the front desk didn't even look up from his phone. 211? Been empty a while, he muttered. Keys sticky, just jiggle it. The door creaked open like it had arthritis. The air inside was stale still. I stepped in slowly, like the room might remember me, like the walls had been watching. Same ugly floral comforter as in the photo. Same gold lamp with the bent shade. I moved to the center of the room and just stood there, trying to imagine her, laughing, unzipping that mustard coat, sitting on the edge of the bed and swinging her legs like she used to do when she was happy. The version of her I hadn't seen in years lived in this room, but she never brought that version home. I moved to the desk. The ice bucket was empty. The little tray still had 2 coffee packets and one of those disposable stirrers wrapped in plastic. I opened the drawer beneath it, expecting nothing. What I found instead made my throat go dry. It was a folded envelope, jammed deep behind the hotel's notepad. No name on the front. But the handwriting, it was hers. Inside was a letter. 1 page. Ink slightly smudged in the corners, like it had been folded before the words dried. My hands were trembling as I unfolded it. Jay, I don't believe you anymore. You say you'll leave her, but I see the hesitation. The way you pull away after. The way you rush out before sunrise. You were never going to choose me. I know that now. But I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of hiding. So I've decided to stop hiding. If you won't tell her, I will. No signature. Just the pressure of a pen that had dug deep into the page at the end, like she was shaking as she wrote it. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My wife was planning to destroy someone's life the night she died. Someone else's marriage. Someone else's world. And whoever Jay was, he'd spent 5 months thinking he got away with it. Unless he hadn't. I was halfway out the door when I saw it. The wastebasket by the nightstand. Half full, untouched, and right on top, a receipt. Different date, different room. Room 212. The one next door. Checked in last week. Different name. Same last name as mine. L. Doyle. I blinked, heart pounding, hands suddenly ice cold. That wasn't her name. That was my sister's. I stood frozen in the motel doorway, gripping that receipt like it might catch fire in my hands. The name was printed clearly in block letters. L. Doyle, room 212, checked in 5 nights ago. It couldn't be a coincidence. There aren't many Doyles in Missoula, and even fewer who'd randomly check into the same rundown motel where my wife used to meet her lover. My sister's full name is Lana Doyle. She lives 15 minutes from me, runs a florist shop with her husband, and bakes custom cookies on the side. She's the kind of woman everyone in town trusts. The one who makes Christmas ornaments with her kids' names on them and donates leftover flowers to nursing homes. The last person you'd expect to be involved in, whatever the hell this was. But now, her name was on a motel receipt. From this place. I stepped out of room 211 and looked down the hall. Room 212 was just 1 door down. Quiet, lights off, door shut. My feet moved before my brain caught up. I stood in front of it for a full minute, fist raised, then lowered. I didn't knock. I didn't want answers. Not yet. Not like this. Instead, I drove straight to Lana's house. It was late afternoon when I pulled up to her white-trimmed ranch. Her kids were in the yard, throwing leaves at each other, blissfully unaware. Her husband, Dennis, waved at me from the porch with that clueless smile he always wore. I waved back. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to scream in his face. I didn't. Lana came out a minute later, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her hair pulled back. She looked surprised to see me, not guilty, not rattled, just surprised. "Ken," she said, stepping out. "Is everything okay?" That word, okay, it felt like an insult. "I need to talk to you." "Alone," I said. We walked to the side of the house, where the kids couldn't hear us. I didn't even try to ease into it. I pulled the motel receipt from my pocket and held it up. "Tell me this isn't you." Her eyes scanned the paper. Something flickered in her face. Not panic, but recognition. That was enough. "Ken," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't lie to me, Lana. Please. Not now. I found it in room 211. Mary Beth's room. From the same motel. What were you doing there 5 days ago?" She didn't answer right away. Her mouth moved like she was chewing words she didn't want to spit out. Finally, she looked down and whispered, "I went to see him." My whole body went numb. "Him?" I asked. "You mean the guy Mary Beth was seeing?" She nodded, then looked me straight in the eyes. "I found him, Ken. Months ago. I didn't know what to do with it. I thought if I confronted him myself, it would give me peace. I just wanted to look him in the face." "You didn't think I deserved to know?" I choked out. "I wasn't ready to hurt you more than you already were," she said. And if I'm being honest, I didn't know how much of it was real until I saw him. I stared at her. Rage and confusion knotted together inside my chest. "Who is he?" I asked. She hesitated. Then she said a name I hadn't heard in years. A name from before Mary Beth. A name I never imagined in this context. And that was when I realized this wasn't just about my marriage. It was about all of ours. It didn't register at first. When Lana said his name, Nate Collins, it was like hearing an echo from a place I had sealed off inside myself a long time ago. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to process what she'd just said. Nate? No, that wasn't possible. Nate was ancient history. Nate was a scar, not an open wound. "You're talking about my Nate?" I asked, almost daring her to say it again. "Yes, Ken. That Nate," she said quietly, but her voice carried more weight than I could take. "The one you haven't talked to since the engagement party. The one who used to call you his brother. The one who disappeared right after. Right after I introduced him to Mary Beth, I finished." There it was. I hadn't said Nate's name out loud in over a decade. He and I had been best friends since college, inseparable. He was in my wedding. He held the ring box at my proposal dinner. And then, somewhere between tequila shots and trust, something cracked. I introduced him to Mary Beth during our engagement. Back then, I was just happy, blind. I thought they got along a little too well, but I chalked it up to charisma. Nate was like that, magnetic, confident, always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Then one day, he just vanished. Deleted his socials. Quit his job. Moved across the state without a word. I thought it was weird, but honestly, life moved fast. Mary Beth and I got married. Lana had her first kid. I figured maybe Nate had a breakdown or felt left behind. I never suspected the truth. But now, 10 years later, my wife was dead, and her secret lover's name was Nate Collins. My old best friend. My blood ran cold. I looked at Lana. "How long have you known?" She didn't flinch. I started digging after the funeral. Something didn't sit right with me. The car crash. The burner phone. The way she acted those last few weeks. I found her old Gmail account. She was sloppy. Used the same passwords. That's where I found photos. Messages. His name in the metadata. And then last week, I tracked down where he lived. "He's here, Ken. In town." My knees buckled slightly, and I grabbed the porch rail to steady myself. "You're telling me he's been living in Missoula? This whole time?" She nodded. "He goes by a different last name now, Nate Holloway. Got a fake consulting business. He's laying low, but not hiding. I think he thought nobody would connect the dots. Or maybe he just doesn't care." I couldn't breathe. The idea that this man had been lurking in the same city, walking the same streets, while I was picking out headstones for his lover made my skin crawl. "He didn't show up at the funeral," I said, mostly to myself. "He didn't send flowers. Nothing." "Because he was scared," Lana said. "I think Mary Beth gave him an ultimatum. That's why they were at that motel. I think she told him she was done being a secret. And then she ends up dead. I muttered. The silence that followed was unbearable. Lana looked at me with something between pity and warning. Ken. I went to room 212 to see if he'd talk to me. He didn't know who I was at first. Then I told him. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I asked him if he loved her. He didn't answer. Did he kill her? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lana stared at me. I don't know. And for the first time since this all began, I realized I didn't either. Because everything I thought I knew about my wife, my friend, even my own marriage, was unraveling. And if I didn't act fast, I was going to lose the one thing I still had left. The truth. It took me 45 minutes to build up the nerve to drive to his house. 45 minutes of pacing the living room, gripping my keys like they might bite me, telling myself over and over that this wasn't about revenge, that I wasn't going to hurt him, that I just needed answers. But somewhere between the front door and the ignition, that lie stopped working. His place was tucked into a newer part of town, one of those cold, beige developments with fake stone facades and trimmed hedges, the kind of neighborhood that smells like money trying too hard. He lived in a rented unit at the end of the cul-de-sac. His name wasn't on the mailbox. The name said Holloway, not Collins. He'd buried his identity just deep enough to hide from casual scrutiny. But not from me. Not anymore. I parked on the street. Sat there in the car for a while, watching the windows. It was quiet. Blinds drawn. No dog barking. No kids playing in the yard. Just stillness, like the whole house was holding its breath. I walked up and knocked. 3 times. Firm. Not angry. Not polite. Just done. The door opened, and there he was. 10 years older, but still him. Same eyes. Same sharp jawline. Same casual confidence that used to make people lean in when he talked. His beard was a little thicker now, his hair a little thinner. But the smirk was untouched. He looked at me like I was an unexpected package from Amazon. Mildly curious. Not surprised. Well, ****, he said, folding his arms. Ken Doyle. Alive and breathing. That's a relief. I should have hit him. I should have shoved him through the drywall and let every betrayal spill out of me like venom. But instead, I just stood there, mouth dry, heart rattling in my chest. Invite me in, I said. To my surprise, he stepped aside. Sure. Why the hell not? The inside of his place was clean. Too clean. Bare walls. Minimal furniture. No photos. No personality. It looked like a model home, the kind you don't live in, just pass through. He motioned toward the couch. I didn't sit. Where do you want to start? I asked. He tilted his head. You want an apology? Or a confession? I want the truth. His jaw twitched. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water. Didn't offer me one. The truth is, it started before you married her. I didn't plan it. I swear to God, I didn't. But it happened. Once. Then again. And then. It didn't stop. I nodded slowly, biting back every scream clawing at my throat. And you just disappeared. I had to, he said. You were going to marry her. What was I supposed to do? Tell you I was sleeping with your fiancée? That she cried in my arms the night after your engagement party? You would have killed me. You're not wrong, I said. Silence stretched between us. He looked at me like I was a wild animal he was trying to read, not out of fear, but strategy. I thought it was over, he finally said. I moved, changed names, cut ties. Then one day, she finds me. Shows up at my office like a ghost with red lipstick and the same perfume. Says she's ready. Says she's done lying. Says she wants to be with me, finally, after all these years. She told you she was leaving me? I asked. He nodded. I didn't believe her at first. But then she started texting, calling, showing up. I was weak. I let it happen again. I told her to wait. I needed time. She died 2 days later, I said. He closed his eyes. I didn't kill her, Ken, he whispered. Did you meet her that night? He didn't answer. That silence said everything. You were the last person to see her alive, weren't you? I said, voice trembling. And she told you she was going to tell me. That she was going to tell your wife. She threatened to, he muttered. And then she dies in a one-car wreck. No witnesses, no cameras, no skid marks. He looked up sharply. You think I ran her off the road? I think, I said, stepping closer, that you had a motive. And the means. And a reason to want her silent. His eyes narrowed. Be careful what you're accusing me of. I'm not accusing. Not yet. I'm just wondering why your house looks like you've been ready to leave at any moment. He didn't respond, but the way his jaw clenched, that said enough. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. My mind ran in frantic loops, retracing every moment of the confrontation at Nate's house, every twitch in his face, every word he didn't say. I kept seeing Mary Beth smile in that motel photo, not because it brought me comfort, but because now I wasn't sure whether she ever meant it, or if she was smiling through the countdown of her own destruction. By morning, I knew I couldn't sit on what I knew any longer. I wasn't a detective. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't trying to get justice. I just wanted someone else, someone with a badge and a reason to dig, to look into this before it faded into the fog of just another accident. So I grabbed everything I had. The motel receipts, the photos, the burner phone, the letter she wrote, Jay, the blood on the sun visor, all of it. I drove straight to the precinct, walked in without calling ahead, and asked to speak to someone in homicide. The officer behind the glass partition raised an eyebrow. Sir, you said your wife passed 5 months ago. Has there been new evidence? I laid the envelope on the counter. Yeah, and someone needs to start treating it like a crime. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a room that smelled like printer ink and floor polish, across from a detective named Rafferty. Gray hair, coffee breath, eyes that didn't blink unless they had to. He opened the folder slowly, started going through the contents with deliberate, emotionless hands. I watched his face. I expected skepticism, maybe even a little smirk. What I didn't expect was the way he paused on the burner phone, eyes narrowing just slightly. He picked it up, turned it over. You didn't touch anything else on this? No, just read the messages. You said it was pin unlocked? Her birthday. First guess. He gave me a strange look, something between disbelief and pity. Funny, he said. Someone else brought us a phone almost exactly like this. Said it belonged to a deceased woman named Mary Beth Doyle. My blood froze. What? 3 days ago, he said. Dropped it off anonymously. No name. No prints. But it had different content than yours. Videos. Voicemails. Including one from the night of the accident. I couldn't breathe. You're saying someone else had a second burner phone? Or the real one, he said. Which would make yours? A decoy, I finished for him. Or a backup. Rafferty nodded slowly. The voicemail was short, garbled, windy, but the words were clear. He opened a file on his laptop and turned the screen toward me. The audio played low and broken through the tinny speakers. You don't get to erase me, not after this. You'll see what happens when I'm not your secret anymore. Her voice, my wife's, choked, shaking, but unmistakably hers. Then silence, and then what sounded like tires screeching. A faint scream, a sharp crack. The file ended. I was shaking. Sweat pooled under my arms, my mouth dry. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Because until you showed up, Mr. Doyle, we had nothing to connect it to foul play. No suspect. No motive. No context. You have it now, I said. He studied me. You said the man she was involved with is named Nate Collins. He lives under a false name? Nate Holloway. I was at his house yesterday. I confronted him. He didn't deny the affair. He admitted it started before we got married. He said she threatened to tell his wife. Said he didn't believe her. That she showed up anyway. Rafferty tapped a pen against the desk. And did he say he saw her the night she died? No, I said. But he didn't say he didn't either. The detective stared down at the photos again. Someone wanted this to stay buried. Someone knew what was on that phone and tried to get ahead of it. But if your wife recorded that voicemail before the crash, she was scared, desperate, and very likely not alone in that car. That last line sent something electric down my spine. For the first time, someone was saying it out loud. What I had been too afraid to think, too afraid to believe. She didn't die in that crash, I whispered. She was killed in it. Rafferty didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it either. But then he leaned forward and said something that made my hands go numb. Mr. Doyle, where were you that night? I sat across from Detective Rafferty in that small gray room, stunned by the question. Where was I the night my wife died? It was a reasonable thing to ask, I suppose. But in that moment, it felt like the entire floor shifted beneath me. I'd been chasing this mystery for weeks, burning through old memories, motel records, burner phones, letters, lies, and now, somehow, I was being turned into a suspect in my own tragedy. I was home, I said finally. Alone. Watching TV. I ordered Chinese. There's probably a receipt. He scribbled something in his notebook, but his expression was unreadable. We'll confirm. We have to. I understood. I wasn't angry, but something inside me cracked a little. Rafferty leaned back, exhaled, and said, Mr. Doyle, you've been honest with us. I believe that. But you also need to know we followed up with Mr. Holloway after you left his house. He denied seeing your wife that night, but the security footage we pulled from a gas station 3 blocks away says otherwise. I sat up straighter. You found him with her? He nodded. They were arguing in the parking lot. No audio. But she slapped him. He grabbed her arm. She pulled away. Moments later, she left in her car alone. He stood there watching her go. So he didn't force her off the road? No. But we think he might have threatened her. Maybe told her something that pushed her over the edge. And then, there's this. He pulled out a sealed plastic evidence bag and slid it across the desk. Inside it was another letter. Unopened. Addressed to me. Written in her handwriting. Postmarked the morning she died. We sat in silence while I carefully opened the envelope with gloved hands. My throat tightened as I unfolded the paper. The writing was rushed, but legible. My eyes scanned the page, barely able to absorb it. Ken, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't go through with telling you in person. I've made a mess. A horrible one. I lied. I cheated. I betrayed you in a way you don't deserve. But it wasn't about love, not really. I think I was trying to punish myself for never being enough. For always needing more. Nate made me feel powerful. You made me feel safe. And somehow I was too broken to understand that safety was the better gift. I want to tell you that I never stopped loving you. Even in the middle of the worst things I did. I kept loving you like a coward. Quietly. I thought maybe if I left, you'd be free. But I don't want to be remembered as the reason your heart went numb. So I'm asking for something I don't deserve. Please forgive me. Mary Beth. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just sat there, reading the letter over and over until my eyes blurred. She didn't crash because she was fleeing someone. She wasn't killed. She ran from herself, and the guilt caught her. And even in her destruction, she tried to leave me something honest. Rafferty spoke gently after a few minutes. We're closing this as non-criminal. But if you want to pursue civil charges, there might be a path there. He crossed lines. I shook my head. No, I'm done chasing ghosts. I left the station lighter than I'd felt in months. Not happy, not healed, but no longer haunted. It's been 6 weeks since that day. Lana comes by the house twice a week now. We talk. We actually talk. She cried when I gave her the letter. Said it helped. Said it hurt. Both were true. Nate left town. I don't know where he went. I don't care. Some people carry punishment better when it isn't wrapped in handcuffs. I hope he dreams of her every night. I hope she visits him in every silence. As for me, I sold the car. I kept the letter. I've started sleeping through the night again. I even started painting, something I hadn't done since college. I signed up for a class. Met a woman there named Eliza. She's not flashy, not loud. She talks softly and listens closely. She doesn't know this whole story yet. I'm not sure I'll ever tell her. But when I'm with her, I don't feel small. I don't feel angry. I feel seen. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel like I'm allowed to look forward instead of back.